Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe to the channel for regular content on ancient architecture, as well as all of the latest news from the world of archaeology. 60 kilometers due west of Karahan Tepe is one of the 12 Taş Tepeler sites of southeastern Anatolia, a site with origins older than Göbeklitepe, Karahan Tepe, Harbetsuvan Tepesi, Sefer Tepe and Sayburç. This is Çakmaktepe, an early pre-Pottery Neolithic A site that was discovered using satellite image analysis in 2021. In the same year of its discovery, excavation work began, a joint project by archaeologists from Şanlıurfa Museum and Çukurova University, a mission that was part of the Taş Tepeler Project. In 2022, the University of Tsukuba in Japan was also included in the excavations. I made a video on this long-lost settlement 2 years ago, but with more excavation and new published information, I thought it was time to revisit Çakmaktepe and give you an up-to-date overview of this very important ancient site. It rarely gets mentioned by the media and social media. As you may know, 12 primary sites have been identified in the Taş Tepeler Project, all of which date back to between 9 and 12,000 years ago, and they're all found in southeastern Anatolia. In recent years, excavations have begun at all of these sites, and the work is still ongoing. On top of these 12 primary sites, many more have also been identified, some of which are further north into Turkey, and some of them are further south in Syria. Back in the 1990s, only a handful of sites were being excavated, including Göbeklitepe. But now, with so many more sites being identified, the excavations have widened. And this is so important, because from just looking at one site, we can't gain a meaningful understanding of the pre-Pottery Neolithic. To get a better understanding, we have to look at the wider area, and although there are local differences from site to site, there are also a number of commonalities, showing just how interconnected these settlements once were. Çakmaktepe is important because it dates back to the very start of the pre-Pottery Neolithic. People were settling at this location long before the first pillars at Göbeklitepe were being erected. The settlement was built on the Eocene limestone plateaus, and these are known as the Fatih Mountains, having an altitude around 670 metres above sea level. The diameter of this ancient settlement is approximately 150 metres. In ancient times, Çakmaktepe was in the heart of a highly populated zone, with a number of nearby settlements identified, separated by around 2 to 3 kilometres, and all of them date back to the pre-Pottery Neolithic. Sites include Ayanya, Yogunberç and the amazing Sayburç, where experts found this now famous relief carving just a few years ago. The region must have been chosen by hunter-gatherers for a reason, offering favourable conditions to more nomadic people to settle down, and this was a time when the climate and environmental conditions were improving, at the very end of the Younger Dryas. Maybe there was an abundance of natural resources, bands of migrating animals that could be hunted, an abundance of wild cereals that could be gathered, as well as regular sources of water. As stated, excavations began at Çakmaktepe shortly after the site was discovered in 2021. A number of single-room dwellings were uncovered, and these range from 3 to 5 metres in diameter. There are also some larger enclosures, with what look like partitions inside, likely places where domestic activities took place. In places where the bedrock was sloping, we see the first trials of terrazzo floors, and this was done by applying a gravel base to level the ground. A number of conical holes were carved into the bedrock as well, and these are thought to have functioned as mortars. This practice, that is also seen in Natufian settlements in the Levant, marks a significant step towards food production from hunting and gathering. The enclosures just mentioned look like they're knitted together, and as you can see, the plan is irregular. They look to form some kind of small complex, maybe belonging to one specific family or group. All evidence points to Cakmaktepe as once being a thriving community, and there are also what look like more public special purpose structures as well, and these are oval in shape and also have a quarried pit floor. They likely had a similar function to the oval enclosures of Göbeklitepe. Göbeklitepe was of course a later site, and there we also find both special and domestic structures in close proximity. One of these public special purpose buildings has now been fully excavated. It has a round plan and a diameter of around 16 metres. Yes, the enclosure is enormous. It's carved into the bedrock in the form of a pit shelter. It's believed by archaeologists that this structure was filled in deliberately, and that's because of neatly placed rows of stone inside. When the building was in use, there were no partition walls, meaning it was one large space. Steps were also found leading inside, and these were made by working and smoothing the limestone bedrock. So, it's clear the people of Cakmaktepe were working stone, and they also constructed a stone bench inside. This quadrangular structure with one side open was also found next to a bench, and it measures 1.5 metres by 1.5. But inside the large enclosure, there were also a number of post holes, and these ranged in diameter from 20 to 40 centimetres. So the people of Cakmaktepe were also using wood. The layout of the post holes suggests that wooden posts were added to the enclosures for structural purposes, maybe serving a similar function to the famous T-shaped pillars that are found at many later sites in the region. Cakmaktepe is an earlier site, and it shows us an early developmental stage of the Pre-Pottery Neolithic. How the people built large enclosures before they would go on to quarry large limestone pillars for future settlements like Göbeklitepe and Karahantepe. It's possible they stopped using wood and moved to quarrying stone because quality trees were now becoming more scarce. The climate was changeable, and hence so was the vegetation, so maybe they needed an alternative. It's also possible that people just wanted to use more permanent materials, ones that would be resistant to the elements, and this includes fire. Whatever the reason, it would appear that in time, people migrated to new sites and settled, and these are close to good quality outcrops of rock. This may explain the chosen locations of Göbeklitepe and Karahantepe, both of which have quarries on site. In another special structure that was partially opened at Cakmaktepe, the skulls of wild cattle, sheep and equids were found, deliberately placed inside the enclosures at the base of the perimeter wall. These skulls look to have been burned, maybe indicating the animal had been cooked and eaten. Evidence suggests the burning took place outside of the enclosure. Experts believe that these skulls had a ritual purpose, hence their deliberate placement inside the enclosure. Finds at Cakmaktepe include grinding stones and slabs, indicating that crops were collected and then ground on site. Animal bones of cattle, sheep, boars, equids, gazelles and rabbits were also found, all of which were wild. It's thought that some of these animals would have been caught in animal traps, and these would have been set up in the landscape by the inhabitants of the settlement. The animals were hunted, caught, and then brought back to be cooked and eaten. Hunting grounds in the pre-Pottery Neolithic were very sophisticated, and there is no doubt that people living in this region 10 to 12,000 years ago were expert hunters. Animals were likely controlled in a very organised manner, so not to wipe out entire herds. This artefact that was found at the site is a shaft straightener, and the iconography etched onto its surface has been interpreted as a gazelle hunting scene. Among the chipstone material that was found at Cakmaktepe, we have lithic flakes, perforators, blades and points. A variety of stone beads have also been uncovered. One very important find in terms of dating are what experts call El-Kim or Kimian points, and they date back to the beginning of the Pre-Pottery Neolithic A, roughly 12,000 to 11,500 years ago. With these dates, Cakmaktepe reflects an early stage of the settlement process for hunter-gatherers, and that's compared to other settlements in the region that also date back to the pre-Pottery Neolithic, such as Göbeklitepe, Karahan Tepe and so on. It stands out as one of the oldest known sedentary settlements in Anatolia, and the finds reflect an organised community with the people having well-advanced skills. We are still in the early stages of excavation, and it's thought the work will continue for many years to come. But it really is quite fantastic that we get to see a glimpse into the early stages of human settlement, before the most famous site, Göbeklitepe. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.